Fuck all this shit, man. I live in Saskatchewan, and when I was in grade 7 back in the early 2000s, the grade 8 class went to Cypress Hills on a camping trip. This is fucked up. I'm shaking typing this. Green ticks time. Arrive at Cypress Hills after an incident where a teacher ran out of gas and one of the other vans had to get a gas can and rescue them. Yes, this incident was a source of merriment even into high school. It was hilarious having a teacher fuck up. Anyways, they arrive, set up, and the teachers say they can go on a group walk, supervised of course. Everyone decides they want to walk into the wilderness adjacent to the group camping area. So off they go, immediately see a moose and find a large tower-like structure made of logs, which was apparently astoundingly slippery due to the rain the previous evening. After climbing on this tower, with the teachers praying to the god of permission slips, they move on. It's beginning to get dark, as they arrived at around 0600 and it was 8:30 before they finished setting up and shit. The teachers say okay, time to go back. Everyone pulls out a flashlight and laughs. Keep exploring, with one teacher keeping track of the route they take. Come upon an area where they can see a moderately clear area, but a stream blocks their path, and the teachers told them they weren't getting wet, unless everyone brought wetsuits and towels. His sentence trails off as he looks across the stream, and a female teacher asks, "What is that?" Vaguely human-like figure in the trees past the clear area, and it was almost glowing, it was so white. Moved extremely jerkily and just wrong, as the student who told us this story described. 3 female kids start screaming that it's not an animal or human or anything and they need to go back. Teachers are clearly wanting to run just as bad as most of the kids, some kids clutching at teachers as if they were their parents. Can't just book it as kids will surely become separated. Teachers say it's just an albino moose or something and they should head back as it's very dark and the stream is preventing them from continuing straight. Head back, make fire, eat fire-cooked stuff, everyone tense but enjoying themselves. Fucking starts raining, everyone decides it's bedtime. Sometime in the middle of the night, one person says his watch read 3 a.m., another claimed it was closer to 2, one of the groups of girls just start screaming frantically. Teachers flock out of tents, as well as a few students who didn't care about how wet they'd get. Guy telling this story included, he made a quip about him grabbing his wetsuit and towel before exiting the tent when telling the story. Teacher yells at something to shoo. Another teacher just yells, "What the fuck is it, Dave, who is our teacher?" I suppose at this point, for some clarification, I should mention that this section of the story was relayed to us by a student a day after they returned from the trip, and our teacher, Dave, allowed him to tell us the story during class time. At this part of the story, Dave claims the grade 8 teacher didn't actually swear and the student relaying the story was exaggerating, which we all believed, as the grade 8 teacher was extremely laid back and mellow. Can't remember the name of the student telling the story though. Anyways, the teachers are all yelling, and something audibly scampers or shuffles or something into the woods. The students who left their tents are freaking out, the girls are still screaming, and the park ranger actually comes to the camp 20 minutes later as campers a good ways away heard the commotion and reported it. The teachers explain the situation, and the ranger says he's not sure what it could have been, but it was likely a moose or deer, and they were just not used to seeing them in the dark. Everyone sleeps the last few hours, or claims they did at the very least, and nothing of interest happens for the rest of the trip. The guy relaying this story to us said they called it the white man, and they pranked each other a lot the last day. Now, this was a yearly thing for the last 3 years. Grade 8s raise some dash and go to Cypress Hills for a weekend. So we were pooping ourselves about our turn in a year. A year passes. Most people have forgotten about White Man's story and are fairly excited. On the way there someone jokes to the teacher driving our van to check her fuel gauge. Someone mentions looking for Bigfoot in the woods. I then add or White Man, having forgotten about it until cryptozoology was brought into the mix. Everyone just stops. Teacher driving our van did not go last year and doesn't seem to know what we're on about or just thinks it's some kid's story. She was pretty ditzy. We arrive, set up. While setting up, the mellow teacher lets out a string of curses when the U-Haul we used to move our camping stuff didn't want to open. I think about the "what the fuck is it, Dave" incident. We get set up though, and decide upon exploration, as kids are wont to do. Ask teachers about the log tower thing in the woods. They show us the way. Climb on it like little moronic monkeys. Go for a small walk deeper into the woods, nothing interesting. Teachers insist we head back when it starts getting a bit dark, even though a few kids brought flashlights. All the teachers had flashlights hidden in their coats as well, we later found out. First night was nice, had a talent show, ate lots of junk food, went well. Next day we tried to go to a touristy spot which is closed for whatever reason. We go back to the campsite and decide to mess around on the tower and play some sort of pretend gunfight thing. By we, I meant me and 8 other guys. Most of the girls just stayed and hung out at the campsite. Couple guys did as well. We're going to play a board game and bet candy or some shit. That one weird kid is laying on the ground with his legs vertical on a tree reading some book. Before we went to explore, we were taking photos of him being weird for whatever reason. It's amazing the details you remember in these situations. Anyways, a teacher accompanies us, the ditzy one that drove us. We all mess around, she's all be careful the whole time. Rained a bit the previous night, not enough to disturb our sleep but enough to be noticeable in the morning. So as a result it was slippery as fuck. We were used to it being relatively dry, and one kid takes a nasty tumble off of the makeshift ladder we had to make to get up to the top of this tower thing, which was only 8 feet above the ground or so. He isn't seriously hurt but has a few cuts that looked worse than they were. Ditzy teacher panics and takes him back to camp. We decide the best course of action is to explore further than the previous night. About 3 p.m. at this point. Start talking about Bigfoot and then immediately after that, white man. A little into our exploration a deer takes off into the woods. We shit ourselves and run back. Of course we all know it was a deer, but we claim it was Bigfoot, yada yada, kids are stupid lying fucks. That evening we want to explore more. Wait until teachers are occupied and think we're hanging out in our tents. We head off, flashlights and sharpened sticks in hand. One of the funnier guys in our class manages to get super ahead of us without us noticing and jumps from behind a tree, in his underwear, scaring the shit out of us. We ask why he's almost nude and he says he thought his clothes were too reflective and he could hide better that way. Moron forgot where he dropped his clothes. We start looking for them, splitting into 2 or 3 groups, forget exactly how many. My group was the largest, 6 of us out of the 10 or 11 total. Yeah, it had to have been 3 groups, as one was only 3 people, and another 2, so 11 kids total, 3 groups, 1 large, 2 small. We go in roughly the same direction, flashlight beams still visible but not in one group. Find his clothes, he gets dressed while I take a piss and another guy gives me some light to piss by. He's facing into the woods in one direction, and I'm facing in the opposite direction. He's pointing the flashlight behind him towards me. Flashlight goes off of me as I'm zipping back up and he yells "white man." I turn and look, and sure enough, some large ass thing is in the woods a good ways away, obscured by trees, and glowing white almost, probably due to the flashlight. Shit, it was probably 10:30 or 11 at night, should mention that. I scream, not yell, he starts screaming, and the rest of the group comes over. They were only about 20 feet from us talking while the one guy gets dressed. When they join us the thing starts walking in its fucked up shuffle and we notice it has at least 2 more limbs than it should. At this realization we bolt towards the other groups who were headed towards us. The teachers apparently heard us screaming and started towards us, leaving one teacher behind to watch the kids at the site that were either sleeping or about to. We all merge into one big group of kids. Teachers come a minute later with one leading the way with a flashlight the size of my head. They start to scold us for being out here at night without supervision, and mid-sentence we hear these huge shuffling movements in the trees. The teachers without flashlights in hand pull some from their coats and start scanning the woods with the rest of us, everyone deadly silent aside from one guy weeping. I think it was the one who was lighting up my urination. I'm shaking like a motherfucker at this point. I grab a flashlight from one of the kids who isn't scanning the woods, just holding it. We can't see the goddamn thing, too many trees and such, but we can hear it moving, and it sounds like it's getting closer. Teacher Dave asks if we know the way back to camp. We swing around and see the tower is barely in sight in that direction, stands out due to the whittled look of the logs, no bark, which is why they were so fucking slippery. We say yeah, we can. Dave says we need to make sure everyone has a flashlight or is with someone who has one. Since the outcast kids weren't with us, we paired up easily where required, me with the kid who I took the light from. Dave tells us we're going to sprint back to camp in case it's a bear or something. My mom almost called the school when I told her this story, as she thought that was highly irresponsible, but I explained the lack of bears and that was just him trying to dismiss the white man thoughts in his head. Everyone fucking makes a break for camp. We hear the thing pick up speed, even over our own footsteps and the wind in our ears. One kid eats it and the mellow teacher picks him up and continues. We all gather in the open-air canopy thingy that had the tables and such. People who were at camp barraging us with questions. Then this fucking thing appears at the edge of camp behind some trees, hiding it somewhat but not enough to mask its obvious otherworldliness. Dave keeps repeating, "That's not a moose, that's not a moose." It seems to want to move towards camp, kind of shifts weight in that fashion. Some kids begin screaming. Teachers just start yelling at it to get out of here and such. It turns and shuffles into the woods again. None of us get a wink of sleep. Ranger comes by in the morning asking what happened. Dave and Mellow teacher take him away and talk with him. We can't hear anything of their conversation. All we hear is Mellow teacher in a raised voice exclaim, "Deer don't have upwards of 6 goddamn legs though." Ranger is visibly disturbed through the whole conversation. We wind up leaving the next day, a day early. Dave is the only one that will talk about it. He says he admits he thinks it was the same creature and it wasn't a deer. School stops going to Cypress Hills due to changes in policy about field trips. And that's pretty much it. Never heard anything about it after that. Assumed we were all crazy, but all this mention of this pale centaur thing certainly stirred up some memories.